The Westminster Sixth Form College centred right in the heart of London. Neighbours beside us would be the likes of Westminster Abbey on one side, and you've New Scotland Yard behind us. So quite challenging from that perspective.
Harris Westminster is a free school. It's a selective sixth form set up for the students from across London. And so we had to take over an existing building, and Steel House was identified as a suitable one with an amazing location and the right kind of size to hold the kind of school that we want to have. The building is 9-storey, 10-storey, including the basement office block. It was the Judicial Appointments Commission and was set up to be a series of little offices. And the challenge of turning that into a school is a considerable one, because the needs of a school are very different from the needs of an office block.
We fairly quickly realised that there was a potential problem for the client in that the scheme that was to be ready for an intake of pupils in September of that year. And given the procurement process the client had selected in terms of the two-stage design and build, it became evident to us that that process wasn't going to work. Decided the best approach was that we would have to speak to the client about going down an open book. Process design would be very open and transparent, and they would be very much so part of our procurement process, but that would allow us to place packages at the earliest opportunity.
At the start we had about 3 months to do 3 floors on it, and then that was basically rip it back to the shell and put it all back together again.
The scheme was quite a major challenge in regard that the client had an urgent requirement for accommodation for the 1st September 2014. We were appointed to the scheme in 17th of March 2014. So from that we had to start on site at the end of May to even be able to achieve the programme. From the client we had a schedule of accommodation, a budget, and obviously the building. So we really had to start from scratch from middle of March to develop the design sufficiently that the guys could progress on site.
The design process for this project started with stage C drawings, which was kind of general floor plans, and they set out the general parameters of the project. Then when we hit site, we'd quickly develop them up to stage E and stage F information.
Major challenges obviously was bringing the design up to speed to allow the guys to start on site, and also the statutory approvals that were necessary, both from building control and from planning. The building control, fortunately enough, we worked with an approved inspector who worked with us throughout the whole design process.
We'd work very closely with the architects, the engineers, structural engineers, and on a weekly basis walk through the site, develop the designs, and also I was on site 7 days a week.
We almost had to take a build and design approach to this job rather than design and build, and part of this was a partnering and a trust that we had with both MACE, the project managers, and the client team.
The other challenge was actually bringing the design up to a sufficient standard that the school was comfortable with, and the Education Funding Agency as the main funder were comfortable with. It's a principal that has the final say on the educational needs for the building. What we did to engage with him was develop a series of weekly design meetings with him, with our own design team, with the client's technical advisors, and also with James as the principal of the school.
The great thing from my point of view was that the architects and the builders and the M&E people were very good at putting questions to me in a way that I actually had enough information to answer them. It was really, really good to be able to use their expertise in building and refurbishing buildings, because I don't have any of that. And I remember a meeting we had, one of the architects' meetings, when Farrans first submitted their design for the work and the timetable, and they said, "Oh, we'll get this all finished by the 17th of September. That's no good to me. I need it done by the 3rd. And they went away and they came up with a plan to get it done by the 3rd. And once they'd said they would get it done by the 3rd, there was no doubt that they would. And it stayed as the 3rd. There was no slipping and never any danger of that. And that was incredibly important to me, because I had 150 strange children turning up on my door on the 3rd of September.
Probably from Harris's point of view, they fully bought into the process of knowing when to make decisions and knowing that once they made a decision, the decision couldn't really been changed without having consequences in the overall programme. So that was probably the key ethos that they brought to the table.
One of probably the key design drivers for us, we knew, because it was an existing 1930s building, the ceiling heights were very restricted, and one of the challenges for us is how we're going to bring in a modern ventilation system within that scheme and keep the maximum height on the floor to ceiling heights. To do that, we actually had to split the ventilation system, put a ventilation system in the basement and then a separate ventilation system up on the roof. This then enabled us to reduce our duct sizes, and in points on the scheme where we actually came across downstand beams, we had duct sizes down to 2 inches in depth.
The most important design aspects of the project were the labs, that they were fully functional, and each lab has a fully ducted fume cupboard, which is quite specialised for schools.
Logistics is a huge challenge on the scheme, not only from the locational aspect of Westminster in the middle of London, but actually in terms of the access. We only had a single lane access that was shared with 3 other office blocks, and from that we had a small lift and stairs. So it meant even standard modules of plasterboard had to be hand carried upstairs.
For this job, to try and bring things onto the building itself, Farrans themselves and the client had to be involved when this was happening. Programme planning was key.
One of the things we did have a problem with was our skips. So Scotland Yard got a bit fussy about somebody leaving skips in a secure area. It just doesn't happen. It's not supposed to happen around here. It's actually, if you come to lift a skip, you've got to take it away and then bring back an empty one as opposed to set stuff out. So the logistics of getting stuff in and out, and parking restrictions, and then out the front of the building, it's all coaches, which are just constant there from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night.
If you're to look at it like a normal project, you would probably say it's like an iPod of construction projects. There was no room for error, no room, no gaps. When we're looking at the programme for that scheme, we weren't looking at a programme in weeks or days, we were actually programming elements of that scheme within hours.
For the mechanical side of things, it's very difficult with ductwork and ventilation stuff being excessively in length and trying to get it into the building to start with.
We physically walked every route of every cable, every piece of ductwork, and we mocked up ceilings. So we physically visualised everything on site and then drew it up. So while it was actually being built as well.
Deliveries was a key thing for us. With our supply chain used on the project, they were fully aware of the nature of the building and what we had to try and achieve, and deliveries had to come in stages. They had to come at certain times. There's times that deliveries had to be turned back due to access to roads and whatnot.
The budget for the refurbishment has been a matter of contention all the way through. It's all government money and they have to find it from somewhere. And so there are a number of times where we had to go back to the plan and say, well, how can we make this cheaper without losing any of what makes it work as a school? And Farrans have been really good about coming up with the cheapest suggestion and then trying to work with my concerns.
We managed to strip back the main switch panel and remodel and retest, which was a big bonus for the client. This was one of the main items that kept the money within the budget.
As part of Farrans' Feed initiative, our focus on the environment and efficiency and costing, we looked at a number of opportunities to keep the scheme within budget. And elements of that were reusing existing folding partitions, and in back of house areas being able to reuse existing ceiling tiles and ceilings to reduce wastage and keep the cost of the scheme down. The relationship with the client was superb, and a trust was built up among the team. Examples really would be the likes of the hall. It was actually in the second phase of the scheme, and the client realised that there was difficulties in getting a hall that they could use for exams for the children. So there's very much restriction in terms of noise and minimising disruption to the live school when they were occupying these areas.
The floors above floor 2 were shut off to us, so we weren't able to see them directly in the work they were doing, and also there wasn't a great deal of sound, so we weren't able to hear the work they were doing, so we're able to go along with our studies as best as possible.
I think they were very considerate of our space and our learning environment, and I think during exam times we wouldn't really hear them as much, and during break time we'd hear them more, so I think they were very considerate.
The other aspect was natural lighting and bringing as much natural lighting as we possibly could. So in the likes of the library and the hall, what we did is we opened a lot of the old roof lights that had been closed off to draw in natural light.
The library is my favourite bit of the school. It's where we have all the books, and it's an incredible room. I love the fact that they've worked hard to give me as much external light, real light, as they possibly can, and that's limited when you're at the bottom of an office block chasm.
As part of Farrans Care's approach to health and safety, this scheme particularly focused on observations. This is observations not just from directors or managers, but this was every person working on the scheme, where they noted their observations and to continually improve our health and safety. This was marked on the job in a sense that there was actually no incidents and no health and safety issues at all throughout the scheme.
For Westminster, one of the things we found very different was our soft landing approach, with regards to commissioning, demonstration, O&M manuals, etc. The school themselves were very cooperative and in attendance to demonstrations, and we had our specialists attend each one of them as well, and I think the client's very happy with the transaction of the job moving over.
Our main objective is to ensure the clients have confidence within Farrans, to ensure that we'll look after them after the project, that it's not all just about the project and the programming, and to ensure that we won't just leave them on a whim and that all problems will be rectified.
I'd say my favourite feature would be the library. The fact that it's so well thought out and that we have our smaller spaces where it's a bit more quiet, or we've got the bigger tables for people to be getting on with work. I think it's incredible because it's not your typical school. You're not going to walk past and think, oh, that's definitely a school. And I think that's the best part about it, is the fact that it's been turned from offices into a functioning school.
Another favourite feature of mine is the colours, so I like how we can mix openness and being professional, and it works very well because we can put things up everywhere and really customise it to make it our school and not just a school.
I think it's definitely the classrooms. I think they're spacious enough, they're a clean, tidy, just a great learning environment that we need as A-level students. But I think the best thing about it in terms of us as A-level students, we have like museums nearby, we have LSE, UCL, great universities just 2 stops away on the train.
The location of this is completely key. Giving students the experience of walking to school past Big Ben every day, of having assemblies at St Margaret's Church on Parliament Square every week, of being 2 minutes from Whitehall, or give them the opportunity to feel that no job is too big or scary or posh.
The Westminster scheme for us really drew together all Farrans' core skills. This brought in planning, health and safety and quality, and these were driven through at every stage in the job.
This project here has been an absolute total success story for us, where people are very good at focusing in on what the client needs.
The difference that this school is going to make in the community is that in 20 years' time you will see that the cabinet is not dominated by Old Etonians. It is dominated, as it should be, by state school students. Getting it right, ready for that first day, made the difference between this first year working and this first year being a washout, because these bright 16-year-olds all had other schools to go to. And so that key of getting it ready for the 3rd of September, as promised, has meant that we've had a fantastic first year.